I'd like to thank the Dollamore Foundation for everything she's done for Lake City. The Lake City Creative Alliance, the Ron McNair Life Center here. If it wasn't for these guys, Dale Smith across the street, Sam Mack, Zach Blankenshire, who will be on staff in June, and my brother and my sisters, they helping me. I don't know how much, but they are helping me, okay? And of course you all make it happen. We're going to talk about the 1930s and 1931 tonight, 2 years at a time. I'm not going to try to prove something, but I'm going to give you some facts, okay, tonight? That Lake City and the surrounding area was not in the Depression. Before the Depression, we didn't have any money, and after the Depression, we didn't have any money, okay? But I'm going to show you some facts that might lead up to that, okay? Okay. All right. Sam Mack, he can't hardly see this thing. This is East Main Street, 1931. Sam Mack's passing out a map of Lake City. And these are the main players in 1931. Of course, if you've been here before, we talked about H.H. Singletary owning the block, the Singletary block. W.T. Askins, Mr. James McFadden, who is Helen Dixon Mixon's father, W.T. Askins himself, Blandon Stewart, J.P. Matthews, Dr. Courtney, J.M. Truluck, the wooden structures that were between what I call Rose's Dime Store and Barrington's hardware store, which became known as Brown and Horner. Then down the line we had J.L. Richardson. He had 3 stores. And then the Caldwell brothers. So these were the main players up and down Main Street. And they will sell their property to different individuals in the 30s and the 40s. Okay? Look at the map, and if you have any questions, let me know, please.
Where's the railroad track?
The railroad track is
Over here?
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. This is going to be kind of casual tonight. Very, very much. Okay. And W. Lee Flowers had his warehouse, what I call the back lot of East Main Street stores on the south side. I will give you a better map next time, I promise you, of both Main Street and East Main Street. Okay. You know, last time we talked about the school situation. You know, we said we had lunches for children. Now we have school for the adults and for the blacks. In February of 1930, the the public school opened up the adult school, and they had about 25 folks to enlist in their further education. Some of the teachers volunteered their time, and also the blacks. The blacks outnumber the whites in getting that education. Now, this is before the Civil Rights Movement, 1930. So we were ahead of the game, actually, in that sense. Had a school over at Perkamus, over at Moore's Crossroads. Y'all recognize this guy? Judge Williams. Okay, he's a Lake City boy running for governor. Okay, 1930. He was backed by the Bowens boys, G.R. and McIver. He received 15% of the vote in 1930. Olin D. Johnson was running against him too. "200 citizens of Lake City went out and endorsed him. But back then you either had to be off Charleston and off Greenville and off Columbia even to play a game of being governor of South Carolina at the time. The telephone. Independent Telephone Company, 1930. They wouldn't charge you for how long as was the distance. For 10 cents, you could call Leo, which is 10 miles away. Or you could call Johnsonville, which is 20 miles away, for 20 cents. And even go further to Hemingway for 25 cents. Population of Lake City in the 1930s, 1942. If we look at it, we have a progression of the population. 1900, we had 374. 1910, it tripled. Why? Tell me why now. Y'all been here long enough to give me some answers now. This is your test. This is like, tobacco and produce brought people in. 1920, 1,600. Now we added 300 more. It says by 1938, the population will be 2,500 with 1,000 in the suburbs. The suburbs, maybe that would be like Scranton, Leo, Atlanta, in that area. Okay. Baby contest, I think y'all may know some of these players that won the baby contest. You got Nancy Birch. How many of you know Miss Nancy Birch? Sonny Hagan. Little Strick, which is Mr. James B. Strickland's son. And Alton Huggins, which is Mr. J.V. Huggins' son. People didn't sit around and watch TV back then. They did things. And the Methodist Church did a lot for the community. And I'm going to plug y'all. Y'all need to go to the Methodist Church on Sunday morning. We got an outstanding preacher. Okay. Now, the produce. You sell your produce in the morning, you put it on a truck, take it to Washington, and in 15 hours, somebody's eating your produce. That's amazing. You know? And it's that every day until the produce season is over. And 48 hours is all one process, 2 days. And in each basket, the chamber decided to put a leaflet in it saying it was iodined and helped the goiter. I can remember waiting in Dr. Timmons' office with ladies with big old goiters, you know. And it's lack of what? Iodine. I'll give somebody a dime if y'all answer this question. There is a radio station and a TV station today, Miss Ann, with the call letters that recognize iodine. What is it? I don't have any game. Columbia. WIS, Wonderful Iodine State. And in 1930s, if you were driving a vehicle, you drove a license plate with the iodine state on it. Pass it around so people. That's one of the artifacts that we have. It was 1930, 1931, 1932. Okay? Pushing iodine. Okay? Okay? Loop Road. The Loop Road, 1930. Where in the world is the Loop Road? And where it is today, right there at the new lake. Okay? It was constructed in it was a rickety old bridge before 1930. The state, in 1930, during the Depression, gave money to build this bridge. And it was made out of concrete. And if you ever go from the bridge itself to Walmart, it's made out of concrete. I think that's probably the original road it was in. Highway 52 was not known as Highway 52 then. It was known as the Coastal Highway. And it linked Miami to New York City by way of Wilmington and Charleston. And it went through Lake City. Not 52.
What's that 1,081 miles about?
That was That's how long it was. Okay? Right. 301, before it was 301, right. Ralph Jonah. Who would know Mr. Ralph Jonah? Nobody in here wouldn't, I don't think, but you would know Helen Floyd's father and Ida Sue King, grandfather. He ran for trustee and won in 1930. On the board was Mr. Ralph Jonah, Mr. Tom Ruffin, Mr. Willie Severance, Mr. E.L. Eisenhower, not the Ike we know, okay, and Mr. How you say it, Furtick? Mr. Furtick, okay. Yeah, grandfather. Mm-hmm. A new consolidated transportation system company headed by Wesley Flowin. Wesley Flowin's father, okay, Mr. Wes Flowin, and Mr. Paul Caldwell, and Mr. Strickland. Had Sam Mack, I said, who in the world is F.M. Strickland? So Sam Mack goes into his little office and he comes back and he says he's a nephew of Mr. J.B. Strickland, the jeweler. And he was a jeweler, I'll get it right, jeweler salesman. Okay, thank you. The first highway stoplight. Where was it? At 52 in Maine. Okay, not downtown where we needed it. It was down on 52. Bergen Hardware Store started in 1930. Got a footnote down here at the bottom. Brown and Horner bought Bergen Hardware Store. It became known as Bergen Hardware Store in 1931. And then later on it was purchased by Mr. Bonwell Brown and Mr. Horner. And then later on, after Mr. Horner died, Mr. Bonwell Brown bought it until 1960. Okay, and it's located where Sevens is today. Talkies in Lake City. Each time you had a talkie come to town, we had Leo the Lion to blast out the roar. And these were the two movies that came to Lake City, All Quiet on the Western Front. Y'all, most of y'all have seen that. And then Merlin Dietrich, The Blue Angel. Now, it was talking. I mean, before that, 1929, we didn't have a talker. We're moving up. And if you're in a depression, could you afford 25 cents to go to a movie? I'm building my case. And amusement. Indoor baseball game. Target shooting. Remember Big Man at Tweedy with his gallery, shooting gallery, right beside Harry's grandfather's store. Cost a nickel. Who had a nickel for 5 shots, you know, back then? The African dip. The African dip was nothing but a Dunkin' tank. Okay? And miniature golf. I can remember Mr. Lee having a miniature golf right off of 52. So you had to have money to entertain yourself, right? Where you getting the money from? All right, the faculty in 1930, 31. Miss Dora Hannett. Some of you may remember Miss Dora. Miss Jessie Lee Johnson, which was Mr. Leon Johnson's sister. Miss J.D. Daniel. It's Daniel, not Daniels. Edgar Whitehead with his electric paddle. And Mr. Paul Caldwell, Mr. Paul Truluck. That was the grammar school. At the high school level, he had Miss Cynthia Singletary, Miss Emily Askins, and she taught us, most of us, Miss Maud Williams, which was Perky's mother. Mr. Lord Hendricks graduated from USC. Before he was graduated, he was principal and AD. And then Mr. George Hagan.
Was Mr. Hendricks related to the Bowens?
I don't know. I can't say that, Sharon. He might have had for the influence, right?
And then Miss Dora Hennett, was she the artist? I heard that there was an artist, female artist from Lake City, and who had the last name Hennett, but I never knew her first name.
You have to look that up. Okay. That was Thad Hennett, sister. Okay.
But Mary Triggers wrote an article about the Mary Anderson and this Hennett woman as an artist.
Well, bring it to me and let me find out. Now,
I think
we
I
can.
gave it to you.
Thank you.
This is still today.
Okay. Mr. Lyde Truluck, which was Mr. J.M. Truluck's brother, became mayor, but served one term. He got sick and he passed away, and Mr. Van Epst was mayor pro tem at the time. Bill, I'm sorry. Mr. Hayden didn't make it again. Mr. Parker, Trey Gatter's great-grandfather, Wesley Singletary, Van Epps, Mr. Timmons, and that Dr. Thad Timmons' father. I.P. McWhite refused to run again, and then Mr. How you say it? McGinnis also did not run. So in 1930, we have a new mayor. I.P. McWhite, W. Flowers, and Mr. George Salisbury, all built in 1930. Did have money. We got the Depression. Building. Don't make sense, does it? Mr. George Mum becomes the postmaster of Lake City. He replaces Ernest Eisenhower. Now if this doesn't say that we weren't in a depression or out of depression, I'm going to go home. 80,000 pounds of homemade foodstuff was loaded on a train going to Tennessee. 80,000 pounds. Okay? The quota was $200. People from Atlanta, Scranton, Leo, all chipped in to help pack this car going to Tennessee. The committee was Mr. Lyde Truluck, Mr. Van Epps, Mr. Presley, Mr. G.R. Bowen, Mr. Montgomery, Reverend Parks. Most of you knew Dr. Reverend Parks in the old days. And Mrs. J.M. Truluck, Woody's grandmother, chipped in as being chairman of the Atlanta chair lady. More than 500 people participated. Now, how many folks were living in Lake City in 1930? 1,800. So you got about a fourth of the people in this area chipping in to help folks somewhere else. Are we in a depression or not? C.D. Prosser. How many of you have eaten at Prosser's restaurant? If you look right here on Zoll Street, you got the Lake City Hatchery, which has just been torn down. And right here is where Mr. C.D. Prosser had his first cafe. Then they moved across the street. Bubba and Miss May. And that's Bubba right there. And right here, do y'all know this guy? He works for Chroma. Raymond Collins. Mr. Raymond Collins right here. And that's where I will get my quarter every day, on Saul Street. From my daddy. Leo the Lion. Visit Lake City. That's why I played, if y'all were listening and not talking at the first. Okay. He came and visited Lake City at the what theater? At the Ritz Theater, not the Probst Theater, at the Ritz Theater. Okay. He toured South Carolina. And he sailed for Europe afterwards. We got another car dealership. Mr. Luthor E. Whitlock. Some of you, I hate to say this though. Mr. Luthor ran another kind of store too. A whiskey store. Okay? It's Ted Whitlock. Okay? Right. Okay? At the whiskey store. All right. All right. But another enterprise was he was the Chrysler and Plymouth dealer in town. Okay? Modern up to date. How many of you know Mr. Slough Askins? Okay. He was over there at the Roper drugstore at the time. He and his brother opened up the Lake City Drug Company in the 1930s. I can remember Mr. Slough, I wanted to make a bomb. I was a terrorist back in the day. I wanted some saltpeter to mix up with my charcoal and my sulfur to make my bomb. He told my daddy. I didn't get my saltpeter that day. Okay. The People's State Bank of South Carolina. Don't get that mixed up with the People's Bank of Lake City. The People's Bank of Lake City went kaput. Okay, 1929. They took over the Planters Bank and the Citizens Bank. And they were Lake City was one of many branches. And it was a strong bank in the 30s. But sooner or later, it bites the dust. Okay? Mr. Charles Kelly gave me these checks. We got the teachers elected for 1931 and 32. About the same. Miss Emily, Miss Dora, Miss Ruby Smith, Mr. Hagan, Mr. Truluck, and people ask me, you had a great education because the teachers had the experience of teaching. They knew their stuff. I guarantee Miss Lizzie Gravely would teach you some math. The hotel coming. So they revamped the Truluck Hotel. Steam, heat, private baths, running water in every room. Painted, and how you pronounce this K word? How you say it, Sam Mac? Okay, good, thank you. That's a hard one for me to say. But it means just whitewashing the walls and the ceilings. And right here would be the Truluck Hotel. Next time I'll give you a better picture. The Ritz Theater. How many of you? You're telling your age if you say, yeah, I went. How many of you went? I can remember one time my loving brother, took me to the Ritz Theater. And right before, we got there early, and right before the show started, I saw a big old mountain or something on the screen. And I yelled, and I wanted to go home. It was a mouse that was projected on the screen. Scared me to death. And my loving brother wouldn't take me home. Okay. The new theater became the Ritz Theater. Okay. And it was chartered in 1930. Or 31, excuse me, 1931. You had to have money to go theater, right? They would have all kinds of stuff at the theaters. Dr. E.M. Williams, who is a brother of Ashton Williams. He came to Lake City from Walterboro, and he was a dentist, according to my lovely sister. Okay. He is Asbury Williams' father. Okay. And he had a office above this drugstore. Don't ask me where the drugstore is because I haven't located it yet. Okay? But this is Mr. McIlvain himself, who is Mr. Clinton Carter's uncle. And this is a delivery boy. There's your bicycle. Bowens Big Brick burnt down in 1931. Now, the Big Brick was at Saul Street, except for the buildings on Saul Street. The Big Brick occupied the whole block, from Ackline Street to Church Street, from Saul Street to Dancing Street.
That warehouse burned more than one time?
Yes, yes. The last time it was burned, it was 1955. The King Street Fire Department had to come. By the time they got to the fire, it was gone. But look at the date. November of 1931, he had it up and going for the next tobacco season. Anybody got any questions? Next time,
Got a question. Most of the banks that failed in town actually failed before the 29 range, or if those failed?
it was a string, Joe. It was from 1924 to 1931. Next time I'll tell you which one survived. Okay? Yeah, that was during the Depression. Money, people didn't have any money, period. But they did have a hog, they did have chickens, they had vegetables, so we were better off than any other places like New York City or Chicago, where they had the food lines and stuff like that, soup lines and stuff.
Were the banks insured by FDIC at that time?
No.
So
That was right. You lost the money, went to the bank. That's why our grandfathers didn't trust the banks, because they lost the money.
My father, now I'm in Chicago now, my father worked for a bank during that time. At the Depression, they locked the bank and locked everybody in. Now, this is Chicago. First
right.
They locked the men and women inside for about 4 days.
Mm.
The people who
Yeah.
worked there, you mean?
So that the people that worked there, so that nobody could crash the bank.
Right. Now, next time will be in May for me. But put it on your calendar. Dale Smith is going to talk about the Revolution on April the 30th, which is the same, Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the month. It's going to be very interesting. He's collecting all this stuff, and he's going to be talking about not Francis Marion, not his men, but the equipment that the soldiers used. Okay? And speaking of Dale Smith, he has a freshman across the street. Thank y'all for coming.